Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome. You are now entering the Stone Zone. We may be in a new zone of accountability and justice because former CNN anchor Don Lemon, the man my good friend Tucker Carlson calls Don Lemon, was arrested late Thursday night by federal authorities on charges after he joined a left-wing extremist mob that actually descended upon a church in St. Paul, Minnesota during their church services. This is a shocking video if you have not seen it. There's an invasion of radicals from Black Lives Matter that completely disrupt and halt this church service. The children look petrified. It is offensive. It is blasphemous, and it is highly illegal. Lemon shoved a microphone into the worshippers' face and mainstreams their reactions during the disruption, adding to the harassment and an invitation by design. He also interviews all of those who would later assault the church about their plans to do so. And he even kisses one of them goodbye on their way out to carry out this crime. The original charges against, in this case, centered on federal statutes protecting the free exercise of religion and safeguarding a house of worship from intimidation and interference. There are laws designed to ensure that Americans can attend church freely and exercise their bedrock to worship, for goodness sake. But Lemon was more than just a journalist, as he was claimed. He was a provocateur. He knew about a crime before it happened, and he didn't report it. But Lemon has had a precipitous fall from his one-time high perch at CNN. He was there on CNN that he said the greatest single problem with today's country was white men. Yes. His ratings there tanked so badly that he basically departed. Then he went into what was supposed to be a very successful and high-profile deal where Elon Musk would, as Tucker Carlson had made the vault from cable to the internet very, very successfully in terms of increasing both his influence and the number of viewers. The idea was that Lemon could do the same. He had a short-lived podcast at X, which was a major flopperoo. But Lemon's actions clearly in Minneapolis or outside Minneapolis cross the line. He was an active agent of this horrific illegal act. Lemon was taken into custody in a very low-key way. I guess 29 heavily armed FBI agents didn't descend on his home at 6 o'clock in the morning. His attorney claims that his attorney said that the government had arranged for Lemon to be arrested. In other words, he turned himself in. They claim, of course, that he was simply doing his job and that it invokes his First Amendment argument that journalism, as they call it, grants immunity from prosecution. But posing as a journalist as part of an attempt to harass, dox, and threaten worshiping Christians is actually against the First Amendment. This is not legitimate journalism. This is using journalism as a guise to engage in Marxist street thuggery. Initially, a magistrate judge actually refused to approve charges against Lemon, but that was an activist, left-wing, Biden-appointed judge. But however, Initially, after that, a federal grand jury, I guess, to follow this closely, returned an indictment saying that prosecutors believed the evidence was strong enough to proceed, in other words, there was a probable cause. What Lemon did was an attack on our fundamental freedoms, and I believe he should be prosecuted as such. He should not be left off with a slap on the wrist. He should not be able to argue that he's immune from prosecution for illegal behavior because he calls himself a journalist. It is an important case. Let's see whether the two-tier justice system is really over, where those on the left can brazenly violate the law, but people like myself and General Flynn and George Papadopoulos and Donald J. Trump and every member of his family will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Meanwhile, Luigi Mangione will not have to sweat out the death penalty. This is incredible to me, having seen the video of him gunning down a healthcare executive on a street in Manhattan, a video that has probably now been seen millions of times. But a federal judge took the death penalty off the table for Luigi. The man accused of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in what can only be called a brazen 2024 shooting on the streets of Manhattan. I mean, U.S. District Court Margaret Garnett, of course a Joe Biden appointee, dismissed 2 of the 4 federal charges against Mangione, including murder through the use of a firearm, the count that carried the possibility of capital punishment. The judge ruled that prosecutors failed to meet a highly technical legal standard requiring the murder to occur during another crime of violence, rejecting the government's argument that Mangione's alleged interstate stalking of Thompson qualified him for this charge. We all saw him shoot and kill the man in cold blood, but he, under this loophole from a liberal judge, he won't face the ultimate consequences. In her own words, Judge Garnett acknowledged the outcome, quote, may seem contrary to our intuitions about the criminal law, but claimed that her hands were tied by Supreme Court precedent. Or perhaps she's just a closeted Mangione fangirl. You see, the left has somehow made a hero of a guy who gunned down a healthcare executive, yet no one has been able to find his motive to do so. But the left has seized upon Mangione. He's on T-shirts and hoodies everywhere, somehow as a hero. The judge did allow prosecutors to introduce key evidence seized at the time of Mangione's arrest, including, I guess, fake IDs, a ghost gun, a deranged writing, I guess, a booklet attacking the U.S. healthcare system. So that is a clue. But Mangione also faces 9 state charges in New York. So it's not likely that Luigi will be escaping justice. But what would be interesting is to find out whether he acted alone. Oftentimes, when we're introduced to these lone nut gun assassin theories, those who are apprehended under bizarre circumstances like, I don't know, Lee Harvey Oswald, even though the story doesn't really quite add up, James Earl Ray. So it's doubtful we'll ever get any answers during these court proceedings. But I point out that when you have these bizarre things, both James Earl Ray and Lee Harvey Oswald appear to me later to be fall guys, and we don't discover who else they were involved with. It is interesting that Mangione could be a patsy, inspiring other leftists to wage war with the capitalist system and romanticizing the notion of left-wing terrorism worldwide. The MK Ultra program, which we know was employed extensively by the CIA, experimenting with wild mind control. And the first word of the MK Ultra program that was credible, leaked out, it was during the presidency of Richard Nixon, and Richard Helms, the then CIA director, had all records in federal possession regarding MK Ultra and its very weird experimental parameters. But there are many who believe, based on what is now known about that program and the tendencies of those who are under the control of MK Ultra, that Sirhan, the man who was ultimately charged and convicted in the murder of Senator Robert F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy Sr., father of the current Secretary of Health and Human Services, who is among the standouts in President Trump's cabinet, who's doing an amazing job getting dangerous additives out of our food, toxins out of our food, things that are illegal to put in food in Europe but are not in the United States, and getting some of these dangerous dyes that they're giving us out of our food, changing the childhood vaccination schedule to be more reasonable and safer for Americans, doing an amazing job taking on big pharma. But even in those assassinations, the guy they grabbed right away didn't do it. In this case, in the video age, we have this video of Luigi, and we don't know where it goes. Very exciting today. The president nominated Kevin Warsh to be the next chairman of the Federal Reserve, signaling the soon end of the reign of Jerome Too Late Powell. Powell disgraced himself at the end of his era, even though he was originally a Republican. In order to try to get Joe Biden over the finish line, the Federal Reserve cut rates when the two leading indicators on which they, by law, are supposed to be basing their decision is the unemployment rate and the inflation rate. And they cut rates deeply for Joe Biden, and he still couldn't stumble through a race, and he ultimately pulled out. But now the inflation rate and the unemployment rate are even lower under President Donald Trump, and America needs a much deeper interest rate cut. Warsh is no stranger to the job. That's the good news. He's a Trump man. He previously served as a Federal Reserve governor from 2006 to 2011. He was actually the youngest Fed governor in U.S. history at 35 years old. He is a boy wonder. Warsh brings the academic credentials, but he's made some money. He's got real world financial experience that I think is necessary for the job. He's currently a distinguished fellow at Stanford's Hoover Institution, one of the still more conservative elements at Stanford. He's a lecturer at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. He's a partner at the Dubois family office alongside the legendary investor Stanley Druckenmiller. So he serves as senior economic advisor to Druckenmiller, served as a senior economic advisor in the Bush White House, and he represented the Federal Reserve at the G20 during the global financial crisis. So he really does seem like the man for the job. And we get that interest rate cut after the tax cut we got in the big beautiful bill and record low inflation. Watch this economy fly. I'll be right back.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I appreciate those warm words from Vice President J.D. Vance. I was with the Vice President on Wednesday. And he is a very keen political mind, and he very strongly recognizes that there are Trump voters out there in the electorate who are not Republicans. In fact, they may not even be fond of the Republican parties, but they are pro-Trump because they're America first, and they recognize that Trump is not controlled by the Republican establishment, who they don't particularly care for. The problem is that they come out in presidential years to vote for Donald J. Trump, but if they don't come out in the midterms, and we saw some of this in the midterms in Trump's first presidency, Republican candidates lose, and we cannot lose the House, nor can we lose the Senate. Now, those out there, those voices out there, who just who say, "Oh, it's over. We're going to." I really reject that defeatist talk because it's not true. They'll say, "I'm not being a realist. I'm saying they don't understand the volatility of American politics today." As we learned after Butler, Pennsylvania, a day can be a lifetime in terms of the change in the political course of events and world affairs. And therefore, I think we have to take every single chance we can to succeed. And we will have a huge financial advantage, which helps combat the fake news media attempts to galvanize and push the Democrats' narrative. Like the idea, for example, that U.S. citizen or just people of color who are U.S. citizens are being snatched from the streets of Minneapolis by ICE agents and Border Patrol agents and deported, which is not the case because some 80+% of the people who have been detained in most states, I think it's 78 in Minneapolis, are criminals with criminal records, either in their country of origin or here in the United States, whether they've been convicted of or they are awaiting charges for crimes. So the media, you see, comes in and they try to reinforce that narrative, which is not true. But the president's made some changes, obviously, in the way he's going about this. The ICE agents who are doing these deportations have far more training and law enforcement experience. Some of the Border Patrol, I think, have insufficient experience and law enforcement background. The optics of it are not good, but they are carrying out their duties. When we come back, Alexander Vinman, who I think is a traitor and a criminal, has decided to run for the United States Senate. He's the brother of his twin brother, Eugene, is a congressman for Virginia. In his first term, both of them are traitors who helped propagate the fake Trump Ukrainian impeachment, which is a totally fabricated fraud based on the lies of these two. He's decided to run for the U.S. Senate in very red Florida. Now, I think this is a good news because I know his case, I know what he's done, and I will dog his campaign with questions. I think this is good because it will expose him as the deep state criminal that I think he and his brother are. He's been out trying to make money off of his connections in Ukraine. I don't think that's gone particularly well, so now he's going to run for the Senate. We will dissect him when we come back in the Stone Zone. Don't go away.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So Alexander Vinman, the CIA-approved whistleblower who facilitated the Trump impeachment hearings, working closely with Adam Schiff and his criminal twin brother, Eugene Vinman, is running for the U.S. Senate in Florida in the upcoming midterm elections. This is pretty brazen. As a MAGA supporter, I have no fear of him winning against the Republican. In fact, I think we should be welcoming this guy into the electoral process because then we can ask him questions. A U.S. Senate run by Vinman will now allow us to expose his fraudulent criminal record and his participation in the deep state conspiracy to once again remove a sitting president from office using deceit, malice, and in violation of the law. Vinman was never a heroic whistleblower that the media and the deep state tried to make him out to be. And the complicit fake news media is in on this, trust me. Vinman cynically fed information to now disgraced CIA analyst Eric Ciaramella. Ciaramella was infamously exposed for his conversation with colleague Sean Misko about the need to get rid of Trump following his inauguration because they wished to undermine his America foreign policy first and the change of the national security agenda. Just days after he was sworn in, they were already talking about how to get rid of him, as one White House insider who heard that conversation told Real Clear Politics in a terrific story. Vinman was then serving on the National Security Council, knew that Ciaramella was a perfect stoolie who would launder his misinformation and serve as the phony whistleblower in their very complicated and Adam Schiff-directed operation to destroy Trump. Ciaramella was working for Trump at the time, for Schiff at the time. The whole idea was to seize upon a call that Trump had at the time with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, taking words out of context and attempt to make it sound like Trump was pressuring the president for information when all Trump was doing was pressing for information that would have exposed Joe Biden's epic corruption. You see, Zelensky knew that he had been pressured to fire the prosecutor who was investigating Hunter Biden, and that Joe Biden famously bragged that he told the president that on a visit that he would not release $1 billion in federal funding unless the prosecutor investigating his son and Burisma was fired. And Biden was so out of his mind, he went to a forum and bragged about this. And what a tough guy he was. So the whole Ukrainian thing was from the left was both offensive and defensive. They wanted to take Trump's conversation with Zelensky, which there's nothing wrong with. He's asking Zelensky what he knows about any of these crimes, which, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, he has every right to do. And at the same time, they wanted to hide the deep duplicity of the others. So it is a very good day. It's a very good day if you're pro Bitcoin and you're pro cryptocurrency, because the president's appointee to the Federal Reserve Board agrees with you. He is a strong supporter of crypto and the Federal Reserve. Kevin Warsh, we mentioned him easy. He really does, as President Trump said, come out of central casting, and he could be one of the greatest Fed chairmen in history. He's young, and he's previously pushed for a number of reforms to restore discipline and greater accountability at the central bank. He was an opponent, interestingly enough, of lowering interest rates in the past, but due to the AI revolution has very much changed his tune in recent years. Warsh, I don't think, will clash with President Trump on interest rates like Jerome Too Late Powell did. Powell was the one who was acting politically. Trump was asking him to make a decision based on the numbers. Bill Pulte, I think, the Federal Housing and Finance Agency, a bitter critic of Powell's slowness on a deeper interest rate cut, and who understands these fundamentals tremendously, was a great critic of Powell for not cutting deeper based on the inflation rate and the employment rate. And then, of course, Lisa Cook, or as I used to call her, Lisa Crook, one of the Fed governors, got caught in mortgage fraud. That caused the president, which he's allowed to do by law, to fire her as a Federal Reserve governor. She appealed that. A D.C. court sent the case to she's African-American, sent the case to an African-American judge who was a sorority sister of hers, who ruled incorrectly Trump had no such power to fire her. Trump will win this on appeal because he most certainly does. But you see, she refused to resign so they could keep a majority to oppose a Federal Reserve cut. And she will sit in that position until it is overruled, which it will be. But Powell needed that vote to keep the high interest rate policies going. the switch from Powell to Warsh will be extraordinary. But as I say, he's very strongly pro-Bitcoin, understands the importance of cryptocurrency to ensure innovation, freedom in the global marketplace. He's very much a free marketeer. The market analysts note that his nomination is not going to spark any instability. They find it as a very credible and experienced appointment, a good pick by Donald Trump. Warsh, everybody who I know him, Larry Kudlow and others, say he'll be a steady hand who can cut rates responsibly while trying to restore some confidence in the Federal Reserve that is too often adrift from its core mission and taken over politically. Look, Jerome Powell was building having a $3.1 billion renovation to the palatial headquarters of the Federal Reserve. And that's ridiculous. It is already a very grand marble building on, I believe it is Constitution Avenue. And the cost overruns here are astronomical, but when the plan was scrutinized by Congress and Powell was asked about it, he specifically said that there was no special executive dining room for the Fed governors. He said that there was no members-only Fed governor's elevator. He said there was no opulent roof garden with special lighting, and all those things are lies. They're lies involving tens of millions of dollars in a $3.1 billion makeover. Meanwhile, we have veterans who have no place to sleep, and they don't know when they're getting their next meal in this country. So this is going to be a very, very positive change. Meanwhile, Seattle's new socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, announced a sweeping set of sanctuary city measures this week that only openly obstruct federal immigration enforcement while forcing taxpayers to bankroll illegal immigration. These leftists are unbelievable. Despite admitting that there's no evidence of increased ICE or Border Patrol activity in Seattle, Wilson ordered the already short-staffed Seattle Police Department to investigate, verify, and document federal immigration operations. The only thing local police should be doing is supporting federal law enforcement officers in the enforcement of their duties. Officers are now being filmed to film ICE activity, certify agents' identities, and collect evidence for potential legal action, effectively turning local police into a Stasi for the city, reporting on federal law enforcement as if none of these people has ever read the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Senate, and that the actions of ICE and the Border Patrol on the ground in any city are legal, as the courts have ruled. At the same time, the mayor is directing the city to bar ICE from using any city-owned property, including parks, community centers, and parking facilities. She's also urging private businesses, schools, and courts to post signage banning federal agents from their property without a warrant. This would be funny if it wasn't so sad. Is anybody virtue signaling here? Perhaps most outrageously, the mayor is committing $4 million in taxpayer funds to legal defense and support services for illegal immigrants. This is the cherry on the top. While Seattle residents continue to struggle with rising crime, homelessness, and budget shortfalls under the high tax policies of this mayor, Wilson framed her move as necessary to protect the community, claiming the federal government poses a threat to the city. Ladies and gentlemen, 70+% of those arrested have criminal records in their own country of origin or here in the United States, or they are awaiting charges on them, or they have priors. This idea that we are snatching people of color or U.S. citizens off the streets is an absurdity, but this is typical liberal virtue signaling. All of our allies, of course, echoed this claim rhetoric, accusing Trump and federal agents of reckless escalation and intimidation. Despite there being no documented surge or enforcement in the streets of Seattle where she's the mayor, So is this an attempt to get clicks or what? The Seattle Police Chief, Sean Barnes, confirmed his department will not assist federal immigration enforcement and will comply with the mayor's new directives. This plan is a blatant attempt to undermine the rule of law, to shield illegal aliens from accountability, and to prioritize ideology over public safety. It's also highly illegal. Mayor J.B. Pritzker, I'm sure you're familiar with him, the rotund would-be presidential candidate, and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, a man who has a 6% approval rating, which about matches his IQ, have also ruled that local police cannot assist ICE agents even if they're endangered and in mortal danger. But legal scholars have said that if anything happens to any of them, the mayor and the governor, because that's illegal and unconstitutional, would be personally, criminally, and financially liable. So the mayor of Seattle may have bargained for far more than she asked for by taking what I think is just a grandstanding press release based on the fact there are no real problems in Seattle. The other thing I take note of is the ICE operations are going on, but you don't read about problems in Florida or Texas or any of the red states where local law enforcement supports and protects the enforcement by ICE and the Border Patrol. As we learned shockingly in Minnesota, we're up against a well-oiled Marxist machine of provocateurs, activists, conflict actors, manipulators, IT wizards, in what is a full-blown insurrection, where they are, identifying and targeting federal agents through their license plates and in other ways, technically, and then sending out bands of thugs to attack them. That's sedition by any sense of the imagination. And the fact that the lieutenant governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, is number 2. Bet you she's a beauty. And Tim Walz's campaign manager and chief political operative are deeply embedded in the signal tracks. Indeed, they're administrators of this violent and illegal activity. So that's what the president is up against in Minnesota and in every city across America, a well-funded, well-oiled Marxist left. We've got to find out where the money is. J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, and Pam Bondi are working on that and cut the money off. That's number one, because somebody's paying for the pallets of bricks. Someone's paying for the flatbed trucks. Someone is paying for the bails when they're arrested. I'm Roger Stone. We'll be right back.
The Stone Zone, entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, there's bad news for the War Room's Steve Bannon. CBS reports that there will be 33,000 additional Epstein-related emails released. The last batch was devastated because it basically proved the claims of author Michael Worth that Epstein had taken Bannon as his PR advisor on his attempts to publicly rehabilitate himself, that Bannon was coaching Epstein, that the 15 hours of video they did together were coaching sessions in preparation for a 60 Minutes request for an interview with Epstein that evaporated, of course, after the time of his death, that they were preparing for it. Indeed, they have Epstein offering his island and his home to Steve, and Steve saying he'll take him up on it. And indeed, Bannon was supposed to film Epstein on the island in yet another session when Epstein was arrested at Teterboro. But he wasn't stormed by 29 FBI agents at 6 o'clock in the morning. In fact, the two FBI agents who arrested him thoughtfully put one of their coats over his handcuffs so he would not be embarrassed. And he was arrested in private. So this is extraordinary. And then, of course, in addition to all of these embarrassing emails in which Bannon refers to Epstein as brother, says to him, try on camera, you don't want to appear creepy. You want to say that if you were with underage girls, they just looked young, but they were legal. I mean, that's clearly coaching him. And then the House Democrats released a trove of photos from the Epstein collection, and up popped 4 or 5 pictures of Steve Bannon, a man who rarely bathes, a man who rarely shaves, a man who rarely washes his hair, a man who rarely brushes his teeth, and candidly looks like he has chased down homeless people or hobos to steal their clothes, or perhaps he dumpster dives. I mean, okay, hygiene is a big thing to me, and I think most Americans. So I don't understand the toothless hobo look, but how he thinks that he will not have to confront this in a presidential campaign, because he now says, Steve Bannon says, he's running for president. How he thinks he won't have to confront this in a presidential campaign? He's got a worse shot than Vinman has in a Florida Senate race, and he will get eviscerated as these questions arise. And then there's the fact that he pled guilty in New York State to essentially a fraud in which he embezzled $15 million from the Build the Wall Foundation. Now, his 2 co-conspirators in this both got long federal prison sentences, and Bannon was pardoned at the time by Trump. Then the state of New York, which had every right to do so, came back and refiled the charges, and Bannon was headed to trial when he quickly and quietly pled guilty. And unlike his 2 MAGA compatriots, he got no jail time. Now, I find that extraordinarily curious, but it is a crime of thievery. It's a crime of moral turpitude. But he is running for president. I don't know how he thinks that he isn't going to have to talk about that. And then there's some of his Chinese dealings that I think will come up that might shock his many listeners. So it's one thing to be in the controlled environment of a podcast where you control all comers. But when you run for president, you open yourself up to all of these kinds of questions. Not that I think J.D. Vance, who I saw last Wednesday, I think is doing an incredibly good job, is quaking in his boots about a Steve Bannon candidacy, nor any other candidate who might be thinking about it. But it is bizarre to me that someone who once called the Trump organization a criminal enterprise, insisted Trump was never really a billionaire, a man who accused Donald Trump Jr. of being a Russian stooge, that Steve Bannon thinks everyone will forget his true record, and that he somehow, there's a place for him in throwing his hat in this particular ring. It's going to be a lot of fun, that I will tell you. Everybody understands my beef with Bannon. He purged himself at my trial. He told 2 different stories under oath, and he did it for Robert Mueller. But there's a lot more to the story. So when they say, aren't you guys both Trump guys? Well, yes, but I'm a real one, and he isn't. I'm Roger Stone. We'll be right back. Oh, actually, I think that was it, wasn't it? Or no? Oh, yeah, yep. Thanks for joining us in the Stone Zone. God bless you until we meet again. Let me do it again. That's it for the Stone Zone. Until tomorrow, God bless you and Godspeed. Very good. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Stone Zone with Roger Stone. You can hear The Stone Zone with Roger Stone weeknights at 8 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.